Come on up here, you get a chance. There you go here. I'll let you get out of this cord.
Good morning, Talk Shop. Sherry D. Moats, and it's so great to be with you this morning. What I do is I work with people who want to discover, develop, and implement a digital strategy that is effective. There are a lot of strategies out there, and then they don't go beyond the strategy. So that's what we work on, is by the time we get to implementation, then we know how to drive the car. So make sure once you go through discovery, development, and implementation that you actually drive the car. A lot of people fall off the wagon there. That's another area that I work with you on. As a digital business coach, I'm able to help you walk through those stages. Okay, I've got this shiny new object. Now, how do I use this and utilize it rather than letting it just look pretty online? Thank you. Sherry D. Moats, coming to your own.
New tagline, huh? Taylor, he said he's doing fine. I already checked with him. Well, let's bring up Joe. I'm gonna just say, come on up, Joe. I'm not gonna,
You're not gonna tell any more stories?
no more stories. No, I'm saving that till next week. All right.
All right, before I introduce our speaker, I want to share with you guys a little bit of a motivational moment. Today, first of all, I want to challenge you, before you leave Talk Shop, get a warm introduction from someone in this room to help build your business. And be thinking of someone that you can give to them as a warm introduction. It's all about building our businesses here. And what's so fun is building it and helping somebody else build theirs. But I want to tell you a little quick story. You know, you've got to know who your market is. And when you get your marketing message out there, you need to make sure it's going to the right people. So I want to share with you a quick story. There were these two little boys, you know, they were really young, you know, probably 4 and 5, 6 years old. And they'd gone to visit their grandmother. So that night, before they go to bed, their grandmother had taught them to always pray before they go to bed. So they were kneeling down by the bed, and the older boy said his prayer, and then the younger boy started saying his prayer, and he was just yelling as loud as he could yell, "Dear Lord, please, I want a red bicycle, and dear Lord, I would love to have a skateboard." And he was just screaming, thank you, God. And his brother kind of elbowed him. He said, "Man, why are you yelling?" He said, "God's not hard of hearing." He said, "I know that, but Grandma is."
Very good, very good.
Know who you're trying to reach with your message.
Nice to
All right, so I want to introduce our speaker. I've worked with Joe Rojas for many years. He has been in the title business for between 15 and 20 years. He knows a few things about how to make the closing very smooth. Joe, let me see, what can I say about Joe? One thing that I love about Joe is that he's easygoing, and in a closing, you know, people are all excited, and it's nice to have an easygoing guy that's just pleasant and nice and just makes things very smooth. The other thing is, Pat Goldstein and I are working with a client who speaks very little English. He speaks Spanish. So Joe, even when he was on his vacation this weekend in Pickwick, made a point to be available to us so that he could get on a 3-way call and do the interpretation for us so that the client understood what he was buying and how it works. So I have a lot of respect and confidence in Joe Rojas with Quality Title Group. And I'd like to invite Joe to come up and talk to us about how to have a smooth real estate closing. Joe Rojas, come on down.
Don't you got any juicy stories, Joe, on Joe?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Joe.
Thank you, Joe, for the nice words. It was tough this weekend because it wasn't that I was trying to be available, but the signal was horrible. It's like more people that make it to Pickwick on the weekends. The signal gets even worse, especially if you're with AT&T. But anyway, nevertheless, it was a nice weekend. As you can tell on my tan, or tanner. Anyway, I've been in the business for a long time. I can't remember, probably since '92. started in the wholesale mortgage banking side of it, so I was doing the buying, the selling, and people can kind of maybe blame me for the crash because we were doing the selling to Wall Street and buying loans, but we were making a lot of people's dreams come true back in the day. Then the market crashed, and in 2007, I decided to get involved in the title business because a lot of my clients were bankers, mortgage companies, loan officers. So I had an opportunity to get involved in the title business, more of on the silent side. And then the market really totally crashed in 2008. Just try to hang on the mortgage, on the wholesale mortgage side, till about 2009, 2010, and I finally said, hey, you know, I gotta make a living, got kids in private school, and gotta maintain, you know, the family. So I gave it a shot and went back out there and just went out to my clients, and it was a good transition. You know, just used the same values, building trust. Was the key to selling, you know, was always available, taking care of your clients, return their calls, and take care of the problems. And it really worked well, and just expanded my network from there. You know, the title company until 2015, and then did a buyout, and then joined Grady McDonald. I don't know if y'all know him. Y'all related?
No, but he's a good guy.
He's a real estate attorney that's been around for about 30 years. And so, you know, me and him really gelled really well. We've been working for a couple of years together, and he was leaving his firm, I was doing the buyout, so we decided to merge about 2 years ago and form Quality Title Group. So between us, we got about 60 years of experience together. So we've seen a lot, experienced a lot, the ups and the downs. And, you know, just give you a little tips about, you know, what we see every day that makes it a smooth closing, a quick closing, where everybody gets happy with a quick closing, or when the folks just show up at the table and they're just so stressed out, they're just like about it. You know, they say that buying a house is probably one of the 5 more stressful things in your life. You know, like children, marriage, death of a family member, it's all in there. And because it's a tough process, it really is. You know, they say it's 30 days, but usually when I get to the closing, I'll always tell the folks that are doing the closing, I'll say, hey, you know, you went through a blood transfusion, now this is the recovery room. We're not gonna ask for any more blood. You know. But one of the best things that I see, and Joe has a really good way to do this as a loan officer, I really have a lot of respect for, is that being proactive is probably the best thing to do. Trying to hide things from your loan officer, because they're going to find out everything about you anyway, these days anyway. There's no stated loans, or let me rephrase that, they are coming back. But there are very few loans that you can't get all the information that you're going to get eventually. So that being said, you got to be proactive and just go tell your advocate everything, because all they're trying to do is be on your side to go to the underwriter, who we'll call the judge, and you know, he's all about the presentation. I mean, if he gets blindsided with something, he's less prepared because of something that wasn't disclosed, it's just going to make everything go worse. It's got to use your loan officer as your advocate, because they will try to structure and make the presentation the best it can be, so you can get a better, you know, not only approval, program, rate. I mean, it's a lot of things that can really save you money, basically, you know. And it can be, it's not necessarily, you know, the 3 things with loans, there's credit, capacity, and collateral. So, you know, a lot of people are self-employed, like in this room, a lot of people are self-employed. You know, Bernanke, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, probably has more money than Trump, couldn't get a loan back when he was when he retired, because he went into consulting. Well, he didn't have a 2-year self-employment history either. So guess what? He couldn't get financing. And so, you know, it's not that, you know, nobody is susceptible, or nobody is not included in that big box of financing, you know. So it's not just credit-wise, it can be employment-wise too. And the collateral is always the big thing too, being that I see that a lot these days with the collateral, because the properties, you know, you got to make sure that when you have a contract the stuff is actually being done throughout the process and not wait till the very last minute, because what they do at the very last minute, and it's usually the walkthrough at the closing, well, guess what? Maybe the walls weren't repaired right, or the wood wasn't repaired right, or the color of the wood doesn't match the rest of the house. Little things like that. The windows didn't show up like they needed to, the roof wasn't really up to par. Well, guess what? You're closing like in 3 hours. So everything gets, I mean, now, because, everybody jumps on the offers, and there's multiple offers, and the market is pretty hot. You're thinking, well, they're gonna buy it anyway, but that's not the case. People still are spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on property, and they still wanna, they're still paying a good price, so they still wanna get, what they want. So it's just good to be proactive on the repairs. Just make sure you follow up with your agent, say, hey, has this stuff been done? Has this stuff been done? We don't wanna wait. You wanna give yourself at least a week or so before the repairs are being done, instead of 3 hours before it's being done. Because then everything gets discombobulated. And the big reason for that is because when you have a disclosure with the lender, you have a disclosure process. So you have 3 days of everything that was supposed to be on that loan 3 days ahead of time. Some banks disclose it fully 3 days. Some banks, well, everybody discloses 3 days, but the way they close can be a little bit of a different process. Anyways, if there's something that needs to be escrowed, for example, well, guess what? You already disclosed, so now, even if you can fix it tomorrow, say, hey, we're gonna add $1,000 escrow to this repair that wasn't done, well, now you're gonna wait another 3 days. So, I mean, there's no simplified solution where before you can just change stuff at the very end, prior to the 2008 TRIG guidelines that came out. So there's no quick fixes anymore. So anything that you do is gonna take more time, just like Joe was saying earlier, bank statements, somebody needs 2 months bank statements, that doesn't mean 2 pages of the bank statement, it means the entire bank statement. Pay stubs, don't go out and buy new credit, like everybody's always told you, but not only that, but don't increase the balances of your credit too. That's just as bad, because that can affect your credit score. Of course, and keep your payments made on time. As far as the title issues are concerned, one of the biggest things that I would say is just make sure that we know what we're dealing with. Like if the property is in an estate, if the company is a corporation that's going to buy it, that the owners is the same person that's buying the corporation, or the person who owns the corporation is the one signing, not just one signer, or they have some type of operating agreement or articles that's delegating that one person to sign, so the wrong person doesn't show up, or we're putting the right people on the contract. If the property's in a trust, things of that sort. We just had one the other day that the customer sold the property. It was a builder, and the builder changed title inside the 90-day mark to another company, but it was his company. But you can't change title inside 90 days on an FHA loan. Title has to be seasoned for at least 90 days before you sell that FHA loan. Well, the deal was basically going down the tubes, and of course, this was very, it didn't happen like a week before, so everything was basically going sideways at that point. Luckily, the company was owned by one owner, and the company that he transferred it to, he was 100% shareholder of the second company. So we was able to make an exception and so forth, but easily if he would have had a partnership, it would have just, derailed the whole thing. So the little things like that, that you just gotta think about, or just, talk to us to let us know what's happening so we can kind of guide you, definitely the loan officer, to let you know what's going on, in the process. Other tips about the closing is try not to close on Friday, and please don't try to close after 12 o'clock. Thursday is the new Friday. One big reason for that is because everything used to be where you could accept cashier's checks, and we could accept those cashier's checks every year if there were $50,000 down payment or something like that. and we could go ahead and disperse on that loan. Well, now the banks won't let us disperse on those cashier's checks like before, because I guess they've had a lot of non-real cashier's checks. So everything's going through basically a wiring system. Well, the wires takes a little bit longer for everything. You know, there's a cutoff now on the wires, 3 o'clock. So if we close at 12 o'clock and you sign your documents, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are gonna get your keys at the closing right there. There's still there's a disbursement process that has to go through. So basically, after you close your loan, sign on your documents, then we have to take that paperwork back. We have to wait till the seller signs, take those documents with the seller docs, send them to the lender. Lender has to give us a funding authorization. Well, nobody's just sitting there waiting for everything. So that could take a couple of hours right there on its own. Well, then give us a funding authorization, then we have to send that money that we get back to the seller side. Well, that can take a couple of hours because again, now we're wiring. Well, you can imagine at 12 o'clock closing on Friday, on Labor Day holiday weekend, and the people are not gonna be able to get it in their house because the seller doesn't wanna release keys until they have the money. So you can already see how all kind of, you know, the expectation is completely shattered, you know? And I try the best that I can to kind of just guide everybody to let them know, hey, you know, this is what we're risking at this point, especially when we're dealing with lenders that we're not familiar with. And they make things a little bit more complicated by saying, hey, we're not only going to give you funding authorization, but we're not going to send you the money at all until we have all these docs. A lot of people give us the funds, but they won't give us an authorization to access that money. Mm-hmm.
We hear about wiring fraud
Mhm.
and how you have to be so careful. So I'm surprised that you wouldn't take a cashier's check or a bank note. Why would you turn down, why would it have to be wiring versus getting an authentic check from the bank?
Because the bank's not authentic, the check's not authentic from that bank. Yeah, it's, when we had one that was like $100,000 cashier's check that we deposited it, the bank actually accepted it, gave us a credit for it, and then 2 days later, they bounced it. It was the craziest thing ever. And it was, SunTrust, which is our escrow account. And the bank, the check wasn't any good, which I don't understand why somebody would do that, because it's like, robbing a bank with unmasked. I mean, you're buying a house, you're giving somebody a fraudulent check, you're moving into the house. I mean, you're just waiting for the police to come get you, right? It makes no sense. I mean,
Can you give some wiring tips?
yeah, I mean, the best thing to do on wiring, and just please remember this, is do not wire anything without confirming those wiring instructions. We just had a situation a couple of months ago with another tile company where the customers were from Florida. They were buying a $250,000 house in Memphis, and somehow their instructions got intercepted by some bank in Austria or something like that. And they sent the borrower another set of wiring instructions. Hey, change our wiring instructions are from ABC Title. Please send it to our wiring instructions that we need. Well, they sent like $240,000. And the title company was calling it like a day later. Hey, we never got the money. Where's the money? And then everything kind of comes to light, but it's already 24 hours later. And basically, I think they were able to recover like $60,000, because what happens is the money when it was going to this fraudulent bank, well, it's still an American bank, and then they're like sending the money off. So they were sending it in 2 separate wires. That $240,000 went out like $150 or $160, and then they were fixing to send the remaining amount, and it got caught. The second amount got caught. And, but that money will never be found, because, I mean, once it goes to that other bank, they pull it, and then trying to deal international, and, who knows? And there's a lot of hacking going on with that too. I mean, I don't know I think one thing that's happening, and we had a seminar with an FBI agent that was in our seminar, was, they'll go to like our website, do the contacts, and naturally my email address is there, and so everybody's is there. So they'll start fishing, because you got people in the room with, 100 people, and they're just fishing for anything with that email address, anything that says buy, sell, purchase, but they're really hitting the Hotmails, the Yahoos and stuff with Gmails, because those are a lot easier to access, because ours are usually encrypted. Especially when we send an information like a settlement statement before the closing, we'll send it encrypted, so it won't be easy to somebody to pull it. But they're hitting a lot of consumers with them, and they're looking for the, they have programs that'll pull up, wire, purchase, sale, home, and then they'll start following, they kind of access them and then trail them. And then they'll figure out who they're talking to, and then they'll jump in and intercept, saying, hey, you just closed your loan, congratulations. Here's our wire instructions to our different bank, so we can fund your loan as quickly as possible. Oh, okay, because you've been dealing with the whole transaction for at least 30 days, so you already have that trust factor. You think, hey, it should be everything fine, right? You told the client to use that title company. The title company is communicating to that client, and it can be pretty bad. So do not talk to anybody. Do not send any wire without definitely talking and confirming. We do that even on our wires that we send out, like seller sells their house and they're getting their money for disbursement. We have, naturally come to the closing, and we have to have it visually, them to give us their wiring instructions or avoided check. If they even write it, if they don't have one, we make it, write it down and sign it. If the name doesn't match or the address doesn't match, we're always calling to say, hey, to make sure that this is the right thing, because, we gotta make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Because technically at that point, we're held accountable too. We're sending money to somebody else.
Joe, one thing that everybody probably knows by now, the hackers have gotten so sophisticated. It used to be you get an email that said something in really bad grammar, and you think, well, this isn't American English, this is,
Right.
Somebody from somewhere else who's trying to make it sound legit. Now, they're really good. They look totally legit, and I know ProLife has a document that across the top in huge letters, it says, warning, do not wire funds without checking. I imagine y'all do too. And throughout the transaction, I remind my clients, don't wire any funds, don't send any money without picking up the phone and calling the number that I gave you, not any number you might have gotten in an email that says call to verify, because they're good.
Exactly.
They've learned.
Can I share a quick story, you guys? This is for real. This is one of my clients. And Pat knows that when you get ready to go to closing, even when you take your loan application, we're warning you about this. You actually initial what's called the tips for a smooth mortgage closing. You initial it saying, I understand, I've read this. We have like 16 tips. Well, right before you close, we send it to you again. It's like Pat said. Do not wire any money for any reason, anywhere, anytime, until you have called the number, the number we have given you for the title company, and the number we have given you that you already know to be my number at the mortgage company, to verify the wiring instructions. But here's what happened. I had a client, she was so excited, she was getting ready to buy her house, and she was just, on top of the world. She got an email that looked like it had come from her realtor. Like Pat said, these guys are very sophisticated. It looked like what we figured out is they probably hacked her Facebook or her email. Just like Joe said, knew she was buying a house on this certain day. They sent her a congratulatory email that looked like it came from her realtor. Even the email looked like her realtor's email, except it was off one digit. One little letter. That was the only thing that was different. And it said, it gave her name, and it said, congratulations on your closing tomorrow. Please wire your money today to this address so that we can close on time, just like Joe Rojas said. So it looked very legit. Who wouldn't question that? It had her name, it looked like her realtor's email, coming from, the day she was closing, and the title company that she was closing with. So this girl, in her excitement, forgot about all these things she had signed with me saying, don't do this. She called her bank and asked them to wire $30-something thousand. Now, this was her life savings to this email address. Well, as happy circumstance would happen, the bank called her and said, we can't read the last digit that you gave us here. Was it a 7, or was this a 1, or was it an L? And at that moment, she realized, oh, I signed 2 things telling Joe Garner that I would not wire money until I had called the title company. So she told the bank, she said, can you hold on, I'm gonna call my title company. I just remembered my loan officer had warned me about this. Well, the bank said, well, look, if you want, we'll just do a cashier's check. So in that situation, she did that and the title company was okay. But the rule we're trying to get through to you guys, and this isn't just with real estate closings, this is with anything where you wire money. People are hacking, people are researching and tracking you when you have those keywords. Be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the email that you get that, you know, I got arrested in Africa and please send me some money. You know, everybody got one of those, right?
Are you one?
Yeah.
You just have to send us the
Yeah. And
initial.
you get the calls, it's crazy because you always get the calls that, you know, like, hey, I'm with the IRS and, you know, you need to send me $10,000. I'm like, what? But, you know, it's a numbers game. You know, if they call 1,000 people, they hit 0.01%, they just hit one person, that's all they need. You know, and that's 0.01%. So it's a very, very serious problem. And especially with real estate, because that's when big money's coming out and you're thinking it's for your cause, and it's, you know, and then you can just be, you know, just completely robbed, basically. You know, it's sad. But anyway, back to the process. But just remember, try to fund on Thursday early. Make sure you got your keys. Especially don't do it on Friday before a weekend, because, you know, you could be risking that chance and in the repairs. And outside of that, you know, I would say that the market is great. You know, we have a great market right now, so it's a good opportunity to, you know, take advantage. You know, the refinances are not so hot right now, but the pricing's still good. They're still in the 4s, which is still fantastic. My family was spoiled when we were in the 3s, but that was probably spoiledness. You know, we have to get back to reality now. But, you know, you can still, fortunately with us, our market values are not very high at all. So, or we're probably one of the best in the country still, so that's a good opportunity. A funny story that I was reading one of my continuing education classes was in San Francisco. The average income, I think it's like $80,000. It's very high, right? So everybody can qualify for at least an $800,000 house. The problem is that most of the houses are like $1.5 million. So could you imagine, like, you can't buy an $800,000 house because, you know, here you can buy a mansion, you know? And there you're like, I can't buy nothing, I can only qualify for $800,000. So anyway, any questions?
Just one more comment. I think a lot of people still get confused about what the closing is, and they think that once they sign the papers, they
Right.
close, and closing is actually, that's what it used to be back
Right.
when I first started the business, but now closing is actually when the loan funds and
Disbursements.
the 2 attorneys, if there are 2, have swapped money for deed. And once that swap has taken place and everything is funded, then it's closed. So like
Right.
Joe said Monday, so all the weekend when you had those trucks sitting in front of your house waiting to deliver all your stuff.
Yeah.
So how does it work the way you just described? You meet with the attorney, you do all the paperwork, and then they say, okay, go have lunch, come back in 2 hours, and we may have the keys for you? Is that?
Yeah, because it's our responsibility is to protect, each attorney has their own responsibility to protect their clients. So we're not supposed to send money until we have a warranty deed. Well, they're not gonna give keys until they have the money. So So we're both operating in that process. So we have to exchange all that information, because just because I have your signing doesn't mean that they have your money. So that's what the disbursement, the funding should be called disbursement, or closing should really be called a disbursement. Because now, that's what takes the timeline, is to move the money and to return back the warranty deed or the keys. And if they're not closing around the same time, you know, that can create a lag too. So, yeah, just the realtor should definitely, or, you know, I'm always open, so, you know, you can always call us. I always encourage the loan officers or the agents to say, hey, just call me, because that's kind of like my box, so I can explain to them what to expect. I know a lot of agents, a lot of times try to be everybody's hat. They try to be the loan officer and the closer, and of course the agent. So, you know, just kind of leave the expert stuff to the experts. And then that just kind of just makes you feel better, because you know it's all handled and taken care of. Okay.
Joe, how do we reach you?
Oh, my cell phone, 901-289-5821. That's the best number to reach me. I'm always available, even if it's quick. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.